Hello and welcome everyone to another ShareWise webinar. I'm your host Sebastian Saraceno, and today we're joined by Dr. Richard Lipscombe, who is the Managing Director of Proteomics International Laboratories, PIQ. Thank you for coming here with us today, Richard. So just a quick outline of how it will work. So I'll quickly introduce Richard, then he'll introduce himself and give a presentation on the company, and I invite everyone who has any questions or anything they want to be answered, please put it in the Q&A function. And then after the presentation's done, we'll move into a couple of questions from the company and any other questions that the audience may have. So over to yourself, Richard.
Thanks, Sebastian. Great to be with you all. Good morning, good afternoon. So today I'm going to give a run through on where we are heading at Proteomics International Laboratories. And my name's Richard Lipscombe. I'm the Managing Director of the company. Standard disclaimer about forward-looking statements, of which I will make some. We are a medical technology company at the forefront of precision medicine, and we specialize in predictive diagnostics. We have three key tests that I'm going to focus on, and they're all underpinned by a proprietary platform technology, and that technology is very important to our current strategy, and I'll talk to that as well. For the test, we have ProMarker D for predicting the onset of chronic kidney disease in people with type 2 diabetes, and that's also recently been extended to type 1. And importantly, we have US reimbursement pricing set at $390 for this test. For endometriosis, we have ProMarker Endo, a test that could be used for 1 in 9 women around the world who are affected by this condition. For esophageal cancer, we have ProMarker ESO. This is a very nasty cancer. We've recently shown in a clinical validation study we can identify 94% of patients with the disease. So each of these tests is a blood test. Each of these tests could change the way we manage these diseases around the world. They could have global significance for looking after patients with these conditions. Brief corporate overview. We have a relatively tightly held register, good institutional backing from a placement at the beginning of this year. We operate from state-of-the-art laboratories here in Perth in Western Australia. We're a highly accredited facility, and the specialist technology platform that we have underpins our research, development and commercialization. And that technology also lets us offer specialist analytical services, which are revenue generating, historically in the 1 to 2 mil range, and looking to grow that revenue. That doesn't include ProMarker D, Endo or ESO, which we're obviously really focused on changing. We also have a tight and lean organization in terms of cash burn, historically 1.5 mil per quarter. So with our current cash balance and the R&D tax coming through, we have a runway of approximately 4 quarters if we don't have any additional revenue from our tests, which I said we're looking to change. Share price recently took a bit of a hit as we announced our breakup with our partner in the US, and I'll talk more to that, but share price starting to recover as we announce some of our exciting results. All of this is underpinned by the recognition of additional skill sets that will help with that acceleration of commercialization, and we're at a corporate level at the back end of bringing in additional people at C-suite and board level to drive that process of bringing the tests through commercialization. As I said, it's all about commercialization. Our science is proven. We have over 20 years R&D experience. We have a deep pipeline, very highly accurate tests, large unmet medical need for those. Each of those tests is going to save patient lives and healthcare systems billions of dollars. But if you focus on the top right corner there, what's changed? We have new cost-effective routes to market. On the back of the pandemic, patients expect a different way of being able to access the management of disease. It allows us to go direct to patients, the ability to have telehealth consults, the whole ecosystem around that for getting a blood test and getting the results back to the patient. If we're successful with this path, then we will get a far greater share of the revenue. So that's an exciting part of the strategy. And equally important, these are very cost-effective strategies, talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and not tens of millions to put sales forces on the ground. So this is a new opportunity. In parallel, on the commercialization side for tests, if we look in that bottom left corner, there are regulatory changes which have been coming through that allow us to launch specialist tests. As I said, we have a specialist technology platform, and we can now bring this to market in a different way. There are over 300,000 certified labs in the US who could all be our partners for our tests. In the US, we go down what's called the laboratory developed test, or LDT path. There's similar pathways now being established in Australia with ISO 15189 and in Europe. We can use our expertise adapting our sophisticated technology platforms to bring them into clinical use quickly. We can bypass some of the traditional methods. So for ProMarker-D, we engineered that onto an immunoassay. That took 2 years. We can bypass that. We have the skills to set up and train specialist reference laboratories so that we can bring our tests through quickly. And there's a nice example of that with another company out there called C2N Diagnostics, who launched their Alzheimer's test. They're using a very similar technology platform to ours. They're also measuring protein biomarkers. So that's a nice success story that we are seeking to emulate. Importantly for our tests, we have whole of market appeal from pharmaceutical companies through pathology labs and on to patients. So for our tests, the problem, what are we seeking to target for diabetic kidney disease, endometriosis, and esophageal cancer? Over 10% of the world's population have diabetes, 500 million worldwide, 30 million plus in the US alone. 1 in 9 women have endometriosis. This is a condition where tissue grows from the uterus, outside of the uterus into other organs in the body. Very painful condition. So 1 in 9 women worldwide from teenage years. Esophageal cancer primarily seems to be worse in the West, potentially diet related, but now 1 to 2% of Western population is considered to be at risk for esophageal cancer. And to put that into context, in the US, the way it's diagnosed is with an endoscopy, so that's a pipe down the throat, followed by taking a biopsy. It doesn't sound very pleasant. It isn't very pleasant. 1.5 million of those performed per year. So that's the problems that we're trying to address with our novel tests. So the solution that we have is we're using precision medicine to target these unmet needs. For ProMarker-D, 1 in 3 people with diabetes already have kidney disease. We're seeking to change that. Our tests can predict up to 4 years in advance who will develop the disease. This is important. If you can recognize the symptoms early, if you can identify who's at risk, we can stop patients going on to dialysis or kidney transplant. We recently showed that the test also works in type 1 diabetes. This is about 10% of the diabetes population. So that's a very exciting breakthrough for us. There are therapeutic treatments available now for these patients. There are drugs called GLP-1 agonists and gliflozin class drugs that can be used to treat these patients. We're looking to launch our test in Q1 of next calendar year in Australia. For ProMarker Endo, endometriosis is particularly difficult to diagnose. That's done by surgery, an invasive procedure called a laparoscopy, where a camera is inserted through the abdomen, and then they poke around until they find the disease. Obviously, doctors and physicians are very reluctant to perform that type of surgery, particularly on younger women. So that's why diagnosis currently takes 7 to 10 years. Our novel blood tests on Prototype identified 90% of people with the disease, and we're really excited by the change in attitude towards this disease, significant community interest. We're looking at launching this test in Q2 of next calendar year in Australia. As I said, esophageal cancer, this is a nasty cancer. 1 in 20 cancer deaths worldwide due to esophageal cancer, 5-year survival rate less than 20% because it's hard to diagnose. Our blood test and recent results, we showed 94% accuracy. So excellent results there. Looking to replace this standard of care, which is costly, time consuming, and not as effective as it should be. Looking to launch this test in Q1 of next calendar year. So what are the go-to-market pathways that we will be using? The traditional licensing model is very important. This is about licensing the test to pathology laboratories or through distributors to pathology laboratories. We can sell the reagent through to those partners. Their laboratories can run the tests. They can upload those results into our cloud-based algorithms, which we call the ProMarker Hub. Those results can be automatically generated and a report go back to the treating physician and to the patients. We get a royalty on every test that's sold. So that's the traditional path to market. And as I said, there's hundreds of thousands of partners in the US alone for this route. The new path, which is exciting, is the direct-to-consumer or direct-to-patient and digital marketing, where we establish that reference laboratory, perform a telehealth consult. We can engage with laboratory connection services to get the samples run. Again, the results can be uploaded into the hub and results back to the patient, and we would get a larger proportion of that process of the fees in that. Direct-to-patient has the advantage of significantly speeding up the time to diagnosis in terms of being able to get patients aware, get tests performed, and we're talking now about being able to bring tests through in a matter of months rather than years compared to traditional models. And I'll come back to this in a bit more detail shortly. There's a lot of detail on this slide, and I'm not going to go into that other than to emphasize that there's a huge amount of work been done to support the rollout of ProMarker D, from the intellectual property through to clinical utility studies to justify use of the disease, use of our test to combat the disease. What is important on this slide is that manufacturing step. We do not have to do that for our current tests. We could save 2 years of bringing those through, but the rest of these processes are in train for ProMarker ESO and ProMarker Endo as well. We have that experience. We know what needs to be done. It really helps us move our other tests through to market much more quickly. So what does the launch strategy look like for direct-to-patient? Why would we do this? It's about establishing product awareness, driving that mainstream use and subsequent volume. Our objective is to rapidly establish the ProMarker tests as a key tool for patients and physicians. We can engage with patients, direct-to-consumer advertising, patient advocacy groups, nurse practitioners and KOLs. In the US, we have a fantastic clinical advisory board that we put in place for the launch of the test there, and we're using that as part of this strategy. Motivating patients so they understand the risk of disease, making it easy for them to have a telehealth consult and for the test to be prescribed, providing that patient access and turnaround to getting the results back to the physician and the patient quickly. The benefit of this is it's about driving and growing sales, building market awareness, particularly beneficial with motivated patient groups. So this path we see as an ideal one for endometriosis, where patients are really self-motivated to manage their health condition. Equally, type 1 diabetes, a group of patients there who are really concerned about their health. So it's a great opportunity to drive the direct-to-patients with those applications. It's about creating a buzz for the test. The initial path will be a self-pay for those patients with this strategy, but for ProMarker D, we do have that existing pricing code, that PLA code at $390, so that's an engagement price for the insurers and for reimbursement. This path also lets us build the case for reimbursement for our other tests coming through. So it's a really efficient way of bringing new tests to market. And as an example of the justification for this is a clinical utility study that we did as part of the launch strategy to support ProMarker D, about engaging with key opinion leaders and primary care physicians. The take home from this slide is that in a specialist survey, 96% of physicians said that they would use this test for decision making. It scored in the top 2 factors compared to all other measures that they currently use. It's in terms of better monitoring of their patients, taking them off of renal damaging drug like ibuprofen, putting them on a renal protective drug like SGLT2 inhibitor that's already widely used for diabetes, but our survey shows that the patients would love to, the doctors would love to use this drug for their patients with the benefit of knowing that this is a renal protective drug, and our test can help drive that adoption. Our existing partnerships are our focus for where we are with ProMarker D today. It's about supporting those partners to achieve first sales in each jurisdiction. In Europe, we have CE mark registration for our product, so we're focusing now on establishing reference laboratories, either ourselves or in partnership with our different partners in Europe. Another market which is very important to us is Central America, which has effectively been our beta test market, where our test is already live. Our partners there, Omics Global Solution, operate in a number of countries, and one of them is Puerto Rico, which does have access to that Centers for Medicare Services pricing at $390, and we're currently looking forward to seeing how they go in securing reimbursement, and we'll talk more about that as that develops further, which is so very important. So what is a technology platform that underpins everything? Very briefly, we look for a biological fingerprint, something from a drop of blood that can tell us that the protein pattern that's present, will a patient develop the disease or have the disease compared to those who don't. There's a different fingerprint. That unique fingerprint, that biological pattern we identify with our technology platform, that lets us create our novel diagnostic test. That's our intellectual property that we can sell and license. We have a deep platform. I'm not going to go into more detail other than saying we always target areas of significant unmet medical need where there's enormous market potential. And the two tests that I mentioned at the beginning that I want to hone in on more detail. Endometriosis is a painful condition, affects 1 in 9 women. The clinical question that we're looking to answer is, can we distinguish between healthy patients, symptomatic patients, that's those who have pelvic pain but no endometriosis, and those with endometriosis as confirmed by that surgery. And the surgery can grade the endometriosis from minimum through to severe. Why would we look at healthy patients? Well, whilst it's 1 in 9 women in the community, in vitro fertilization clinics, IVF clinics, that number is 1 in 4. So women who are otherwise healthy are having problems with fertility because of endometriosis. So that's an exciting area where we can apply our test. Our prototype that we built working with the Royal Women's Hospital from Melbourne identified 90% of patients with the disease, and we have patents pending in all major jurisdictions. Now, that prototype test showed limitations in being able to identify those symptomatic patients from the mild stages of disease. And what we've been doing is advanced statistical modeling so that we can identify and separate these groups out, because obviously that's a key area. We want to be able to identify people early. We have new clinical results which are submitted for peer review publication, and we'll share the feedback from that as it becomes available. What we do with our tests is what's called a traffic light grading system, where we categorize patients as high risk, red zone, through the amber to green zone. If you're in the green zone in our test, that's a good place to be. We have really good rule out rates, up to 98%, 99%, where we can say you do not have the disease. If you're in the red zone in our test, then we can be sure that the patient has the disease, or the high level of accuracy. We actually try and minimize that amber zone where we're not sure, but the focus is getting the test as accurate as we can for as many people as we can. So for endo, we're currently adapting that test for clinical launch. And as I said, looking to bring that through in Australia under a specialist accreditation pathway called 15189, targeting Q2 of next year. And we're running a number of clinical studies ongoing to support this. Esophageal cancer, as I said, this is a nasty cancer, less than 20% 5-year survival rate. Looking for a test that can distinguish healthy people from those with cancer. And there's a range of different issues for esophageal cancer. Its full name is esophageal adenocarcinoma. The risk factors aren't really understood. Chronic acid reflux is one, but half the patients with chronic acid reflux don't go on to, many patients with chronic acid reflux don't go on to develop cancer. Many cancer cases are completely undetected until it's severe and people have trouble swallowing. So we're looking to replace this surgery with a simple blood test. The sophisticated, the novel test that we've developed, we've recently shown it has 94% accuracy in diagnosing patients with or without the disease. We have patents granted in Europe, China, and Australia. We again use this traffic light system, and we presented these results at the World Esophageal Diseases Conference last weekend, and very well received in terms of the excitement of those levels of accuracy. That test again is being adapted for clinical launch, looking to bring this into Australia in Q1 of next calendar year. Again, we work with some of the best groups around the world, or certainly in the Southern Hemisphere, for developing these tests. We have more in the pipeline. I'm not going to go into this just to give a flavour for what's coming, but oxidative stress is some technology that we have. It's involved in almost every disease in the planet. But if you focus on the right-hand side, potential application as an athletic monitoring tool in professional sports or the thoroughbred horse racing industry. So there's a deep pipeline underpinning our tests that are already at commercial ready stage. We have multiple value drivers for this financial year, potential share price catalysts across a range of areas. On the commercial side, looking for first sales of ProMarker D in the US in the first half of next calendar year, looking to launch ProMarker D in Australia early next year, and in Europe with our partners, and relying on them to deliver, launching our other tests early next year as well. On the technical clinical side, more results for endometriosis and esophageal cancer, the OxyDX test results as well. We'll underpin all of this by regulatory and reimbursement pathways and appropriate submissions for TGA, FDA for each of our tests next calendar year. So in summary, we have an exceptional global opportunity. We have a disruptive cutting-edge technology that's been proven. The ProMarker D test has been de-risked, patented, and is revenue ready. The ProMarker Endo and ProMarker ESO tests are nearing commercial readiness as well. They're all scalable and all high margin tests. We have a whole of market appeal, meaning we can partner with pharmaceutical companies, pathology labs, and platform developers, and obviously looking to work with physicians and patients. This is a very vibrant sector, and precision medicine is with us now when we're looking to continue helping to drive that forward as a tool to save patients and healthcare systems billions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. That was very insightful. I'm sure for current, beg your pardon, current and prospective shareholders. So we do have a couple of questions from the audience just to kick us off. I guess first one is, what protections are in place for your IP for each product and in each country?
So for ProMarker D, we have full patent coverage globally, so all major jurisdictions already granted. For ProMarker ESO, we have patent protection in Europe, China, Australia already, US and other countries pending. ProMarker Endo, those patents are newer applications, and so they're in process. But that's the first part of protection. The second part of protection is our algorithm is proprietary, so that tool is something that's a trade secret, and that gives us an additional level of intellectual property protection.
Brilliant. And initial user pay for ProMarker D going DTC/DTP. When is the reimbursement expected to be available from insurers?
So consumer direct to patient would initially be a self-pay model. In terms of reimbursement, we have that reimbursement code in place for ProMarker D. So that sets the benchmark for the level that insurers would pay, and those conversations are part of our process for bringing the test through. The pricing for Endo and ESO, that's part of the economic health benefit modelling that we currently have in place, and we'll talk more to those when we have the relevant numbers to share.
Brilliant. All right. A couple of questions from us here at ShareWise. So is the world ready for direct-to-patient diagnostic tests?
Yes, we think it is now. The opportunity, the demand for everything is online. So people are used to being at their fingertips and being able to order through Amazon, get anything delivered straight away. And the diagnostic test that we see as being able to fit along that same strategy. Amazon have now got a massive healthcare division, so it speaks for itself in terms of the ecosystem that's being put in place to drive healthcare. Well, we see ourselves as being part of that.
Brilliant. And I guess that ties into my next question. What is the Proteomics International expecting from new license partners for its diagnostic tests?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What is Proteomics International expecting from new license partners for its diagnostic tests?
So we're expecting partners who are agile, able to bring tests through quickly, and moving with the same enthusiasm and speed that we can. So we expect a partner to be able to get our tests up and running quickly and engaging with the community, be that the traditional marketplace or being able to work with direct to patient as well. And so we have the clinical advisory board in place for ProMarker-D. So it's about engaging with all these different groups so that we can bring the test to patients as quickly as possible.
Okay, brilliant. And from my understanding, you recently announced the end of your license agreement with Sonic Healthcare USA for ProMarker-D in the US. Can you just shed a bit of light as to what went wrong there or why that actually happened?
Yeah, so that was important exercise for us. So we looked to license, we did license the test in the US. That did not go as we originally planned. We had a series of milestones and KPIs in place for the last 12 to 18 months. And the test was due to launch at the beginning of 2024. That hasn't happened, or that didn't happen. And we took the painful decision, but the sensible one, to move on. And what we look at there, it's well understood, I think, that the diagnostics sector and the pathology labs are quite lean organizations, that their bread and butter exercise is low margin. And all of the analyst reports suggest that life is relatively tough for these organizations. You go and get a blood sample collected, those places are fairly spartan, that they're not full of excess capacity. And so when we look at the requirements of bringing in a sophisticated test like ours and the work required for that, perhaps there's not always the capacity there that we originally anticipated. And I say that's why it's important for new partners that we look for who are a bit more agile and able to move quickly. Okay,
lovely. And just to touch a bit on ProMarker Endo, who would benefit most from the new blood test for endometriosis, which is ProMarker Endo?
Yeah, we see this as a breakthrough for younger patients. So particularly younger women, potentially even teenage girls. Once women start puberty, then the risk of endometriosis is there straight away. And so I think for too long as a community, we've ignored some of that pain and just dismissed it as period pain. Whereas it's now being recognized that it's genuinely a disease condition here, and that endometriosis starts early. If we can use our test to diagnose endometriosis in patients much earlier, then we can change the way those patients are managed, and then not wait 7 to 10 years to say, now we're going to do surgery and laser ablation therapy that comes with that. If we can diagnose much earlier, then we can transform the way those patients are looked after. So the short answer is being able to change the way younger patients are managed with endometriosis will be a game changer for those patients and really significant for the healthcare system.
Brilliant. That's great news here. And then I guess just a bit on ProMarker-ESO now. Why are the latest results for esophageal cancer so important for ProMarker-ESO?
Yeah, so the recent results that we announced last weekend, this was our third study that we've done. So it's important to do independent clinical validation studies. We've now done those, and our last study showed that the ProMarker-ESO test could identify 94% of patients with esophageal adenocarcinoma, equally 94% rule-out rate. So if they didn't have it, we were highly accurate. If they did have it, we were highly accurate. That shows us that the test works and that we can bring it through. So that's our focus now, is to get the test live as soon as possible and roll that out in Australia first, and then into other jurisdictions, particularly the US, as soon as possible.
Apologies for the background noise, bit of drilling in the building. But now we have a couple of questions from the registrants. So what is your understanding of the reason Sonic Healthcare failed to launch ProMarker-D?
As I said in my previous answer, that the resources in the diagnostic companies are leaner than we might initially expect. So the bread and butter system, the bread and butter tests that they perform, they're not high margin, that they don't have necessarily the deep pockets that we would all like. And so for bringing through a sophisticated test like ours, perhaps the resources weren't there as we imagined. I'm talking broadly for the sector. It's quite clear that there's opportunities there, but that it's a tough market for the pathology companies at the moment. and ultimately it didn't work with Sonic Healthcare US in the way that we anticipated, and it was the right decision to move on rather than wait indefinitely and leave a product like ProMarker-D sitting on the side when we know that there's a demand for it and that patients want it.
Okay, brilliant. Is the plan moving forward to promote the test directly to diabetes sufferers or to their medical practitioners, would you say?
It's both. As I showed, we've done surveys with practitioners and specialists to show that they want the test. And we'll continue that engagement through our key opinion leaders and our clinical advisory board to drive their awareness and make it clear the test is available for them. And then equally with a direct-to-patient marketing strategy and through patient advocacy groups, particularly in type 1 diabetes, where we know that there's a real willingness to adopt better therapies and better treatments, better management of that disease, engaging with those patient groups so that they're clear the test is available, and that then if they want it, then they can contact the telehealth systems and get the test. So that's our current objective, and that's part of the go live in Australia strategy for next year, and we'll in parallel be pursuing the US as well.
I do have a couple of questions just regarding financials. So I have a question here. What areas PIQ you targeted to achieve positive cash flow?
I can't speak to timing for positive cash flow. It's all dependent on how quickly we can roll out the test. What I can say is we have our existing revenue from our biological services business, and we continue to keep a lean organisation. The objective is to launch and get our tests live and generating revenue as soon as possible in Q1, Q2 of next year for those tests. And the adoption of a new test in a novel market, of a novel test in a new market is very hard to predict how quickly they'll go. But in the US, we have 30 million people who are our target audience for ProMarker-D. Half of the population of the US is potential target for the endometriosis test. They're very large markets. We'd love to think the test would scale quickly, but we don't know. We'll obviously start to provide indications as the tests go live and we start to see revenue, and we can start to model it from there.
Brilliant. All right. And just to wrap us up, has Proteomics entered any collaboration or partnerships regarding the advancing biochip technology?
We have a number of partnerships and collaborators that we work with for all of our tests. So, as I said, we like to work with world-leading groups, and we've been able to do that for each of our tests that are coming through. We will continue to do that for the tests that we develop, and as we roll our tests out, we'll also look to partner with the world bodies for tests, the American Diabetes Association, the World Endometriosis groups, so that we can make it clear what our tests can do for patients and really help to change the way that we manage these diseases for these patients.
Good. All right. Thanks for that, Richard. I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Richard, for your time. Really appreciate it. If you want to watch this, guys, it's recorded and will be posted on YouTube. Richard, is there any last words or comments that you'd like to leave us off with?
Yes, Sebastian, I would. What we're excited about is that we've got world-changing tests for 3 really chronic diseases: diabetic kidney disease, endometriosis, and esophageal cancer. In each of their ways, they're very debilitating diseases, and our tests can make a difference. And we're excited about bringing those to market as soon as possible, and that's for our current objective, and that's what we're striving to do. And we look forward to sharing that progress as we make it.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you again, Richard, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And until the next time, thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks all.